This is the War Room Roundtable podcast, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant businessmen and women on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on the road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their successes into your life and business. The War Room Roundtable is brought to you by your hosts, Jason Miller, CEO of Strategic Advisor Board, and Phillip Lanos, CEO of Own the Rhythm, and former podcast host for Entrepreneur and Inc. magazine. Welcome to the War Room. It's a pleasure to have you here, Alex. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. We were just talking before we got started about a couple of things, including your time in service in the military. So thank you for your service, as
Thanks,
we like
brother.
to do here. We have had a lot of veterans on this show, and it's always a great conversation. But before we get into that, the way we usually started off is by asking if you come from a family of entrepreneurs, working professionals, creatives.
Oh, not at all, man. I'm first generation American. Both my parents were born and raised in Iraq, actually, in northern Iraq. I think that whole culture, though, in general, where I come from, I've read up on my history of like where my parents come from and stuff, and like there's a history of like merchants in my family and business owners. So not necessarily my parents, but I feel like that whole community of like trading and stuff has been around for thousands of years. So I think that's where like the entrepreneurial side of me comes from.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how early on into your own development as an adult did the bug bite you for like, I need to get out? Because most people growing up, unless they grow up in that specifically, they end up, go to college, maybe get a degree, get a job in that degree. So you have military background, right? With merchant history in your blood. So how did you end up here where you are today doing real estate?
Yeah, so I mean, it honestly didn't present itself until way further on. And I mean, I attribute most of my early success to all the leaders I had in the Marine Corps. So I was very fortunate to be around phenomenal leaders where in the unit that I was at. But what I realized was and we can talk about my military history too and what led me to that. But what I realized was if you had good leadership in the military, there wasn't a big like business is leadership, but like is delegating to people and is leading people. That's essentially what the military teaches you, how to properly delegate and then how to lead those people. And that's essentially what business is. So I think the bug came from me. I read a lot when I was in the military. Like if we weren't doing field ops or whatever, like I was reading up on something. I had most of my bachelor's degree done by the time I even got out. But it was a little bit of both. It was like I wanted to go into business for myself. This happened sort of the last year of my enlistment. I did 4.5 years in the Marine Corps. I was mainly a part of the Marine Corps Honor Guard, so I was an infantryman by trade, but I was selected to go to DC there. So I was mainly there my whole enlistment. And my last year was like really where I dove deep into a lot of different asset classes. It wasn't just real estate. It was like just overall business ownership, leadership, stock market stuff, and then real estate. And I eventually did land on real estate, but I was also going to, when I moved here where I currently live in Asheville, in North Carolina, I was also going to school at the same time. I was going to school for entrepreneurship, and then I had not a lot of left on my bachelor's degree by the time I got out. So I think I finished my bachelor's degree in like 6 or 8 months by the time I got out. And then I immediately went into an MBA, and I realized that honestly, going through formal schooling is what made me realize why I wanted to get into business, because I was finishing an MBA in real estate development while at the same time developing real estate. And what I was learning in the classroom was the complete opposite of what I was actually going through in real life. So that's where I was like, okay, like turning this into my like long-term thing or like my business compared to just developing one property. That's where the epiphany came from originally. And I was already developing short-term rentals, like in terms of I was already doing the rental arbitrage model of subleasing short-term rentals. But developing that first one while in tandem finishing an MBA in real estate development together was sort of the launching pad for what I'm currently doing now.
Yeah, no, I love that specifically because how often do we see people with degrees that don't end up using them at all, right?
Yeah.
Or
I
end
got
up
to I got to the dissertation portion of a doctorate when I decided I was done. Like, yeah,
you were that close when you were like, I
yeah,
just
yeah.
can't.
It
I
was just the
just can't.
formal stuff was just like I was getting. Again, every university is going to be different, but even during my MBA, I felt like I was getting taught by people that didn't have the real life experience that I was like either going through or I was going to go through.
Your
'Cause they didn't.
dissertation, yeah.
Yeah.
Your dissertation was gonna be like, so yeah, don't go to school.
Yeah, I was like, my dissertation was based on the sharing economy, which is what my business partially is. And I'm arguing my stuff with people that had no experience in that. So it's like I'm going through this every day. Like this is it's like we're like obviously like you have to source stuff and stuff, but like I was also going from a lot of personal experience.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how people can teach us how to do something and they've never actually done it themselves?
You know what's it's insane.
Isn't that mind-boggling?
That comes from the military, at least for me. It's like you looked at a leader, there were, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a certain amount of respect that came from getting taught from a leader that had already gone through what they were teaching you, right? So that's like ingrained in us.
Yeah. And then to go out and then to a school where it's all theory, man. In theory, this is how it should work.
Yeah, like
wow,
I think I had when I was going through my real estate, my MBA, like I had three properties. I had three properties, and I was getting taught by someone on real estate analysis that had never owned any real estate, because that was the first question I asked him. So I was like, what's happening?
Oh man, that had to be painful. Well, to no surprise, you've been crushing it in business regardless. And if anything, being able to see that contrast probably helped you double down on the realities of business, knowing that everybody else is learning that, then I've got it made, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you've gone off and you've kicked off a YouTube channel, which a lot of people don't do, right? Like a lot of people have heard that YouTube is a great opportunity, but haven't done anything with it. And if they did, it was half-hearted. But here you are specifically with a channel focused on short-term development and management. Tell me more about how this process came about. Was it sort of like one of your marketing channels, or have you always just been passionate about teaching?
I've always been passionate about teaching. And I think, again, that comes from the military. That also comes from my mom. My mom's been a school teacher her whole life, both in Iraq, and she's a high school teacher here. And I think teaching, I love mentoring. I love teaching. And also what I realized was I was already driving out to, like, I drove to two of my job sites this morning. Like I was already driving out to my job sites. Might as well just take a camera with me. So I do stuff in my office the way I am now with like on my computer, and I teach like that through the YouTube channel, and I'll teach on management topics and blah, blah, blah. But people love the on-site stuff, especially for the first year of the YouTube channel. I actually had never shown any of the people on the YouTube channel my actual properties, and I started getting called out, like, this guy doesn't even own any property or whatever. I was like, all right, yeah. I was like, fair point. I was like, I gotta start showing people what I'm actually working on. But yeah, that's where that came about. Was like, I have a passion for teaching, but also I was already going out to my job sites. Like I can just shoot a quick 5-10 minute video while I'm already out there checking up on stuff and just speaking out loud instead of just thinking it. Yeah.
No, I love that, because it sort of comes back to like when you were in the class and you were like, well, have you ever actually developed a property that people
absolutely.
are doing it to
Same
you
exact
on YouTube?
Yeah, like I'm complaining about it, but fair point. Yeah.
Except you could actually back it up.
Yeah, exactly.
So what has that been like then? Have you had people also reach out like in the comments and asking you, can you teach me, or things of that nature?
Yeah, so that didn't really, so it happened a little bit on the YouTube channel. That didn't start happening until I became associated with Bigger Pockets. And if you guys don't know what Bigger Pockets is, it's the biggest real estate platform like in the country. And I write all their short-term rental content, or at least I'd say maybe 60 to 80% of all their short-term rental content. And that is where a bulk of my investors were coming from randomly. And then that is where a lot of the people, I've looked at the stats that they've shown me. About 70% of the people who are reading my articles and reading the other articles are beginners. They've never owned real estate ever. They've never even closed on a property. So, so I got a lot of people who were starting out that were doing that. just reaching out to me either through LinkedIn or through my YouTube channel or even in the comment section of the blogs. And that's where I put together like a coaching program where I'm not like 100% tied to it, but it's a short-term rental development. I didn't even have plans on talking about this today, but like a short-term rental development coaching program, like a group coaching program. And that's where I push people towards who have any questions about that. And then my YouTube channel as well, because it touches on some of the topics I teach in the course.
Yeah, no, I think it's just great to see that you're going the extra mile, because you don't have to be teaching any courses or any workshops. You probably have your hands full already with what you have, but it would be easier to do it in a group as opposed to one-on-one. That would be near impossible.
Yeah, I'll take, I told myself I want to take like 2 to 3 one-on-one clients, but I want them to go through my course and my methodology first before I even take anyone. Because if you're taking someone one-on-one, I mean, it doesn't even matter about money at that point. It's like, do you actually want to work with this person? Because you're going to be tied to them for the next year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, man, I think it's awesome. Before I go any further, I want to check in with Jason to sort of hear his reflections on what you've been saying so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to see like, fellow brothers and sisters that get out of the military and don't end up just working for somebody else and, figure out a way to take all that experience and just crush it some way different. Right.
Yeah. And you gotta start planning, no matter how busy your schedule is, you gotta, even thinking about it, you gotta start planning pretty aggressively, no matter if you're getting out if you've done 20 years, 4 years, whatever, 2 years, you gotta like think about like what you're going to be doing. And then on top of that, I tell this to people all the time. I did not leave the Marine Corps because I hated the Marine Corps. I loved my time in the Marine Corps. I just knew that there was more for me to do outside of the military. And that's another thing I talk to a lot of my friends about is like, don't leave the military if you hate it without a plan, because people will just leave it just because they're fed up or whatever. Okay. It's like, okay, if that's your opinion, more power to you, but have a plan. I mean, there's so many resources out there for veterans.
Yeah. Lots, tons of resources.
Like it's almost overwhelming, like how much there is at this point.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just resources are only good if people put them to good use. So
it's like a book. Yeah, if you just read a book and set it down and do nothing, nothing's going to happen.
Like a book, I can read a book and not really. I can read there's a difference between reading a book and absorbing a book. Yeah, consuming it. Yeah, absolutely. Totally different things, because I've read a whole book before and then was like, what the hell did I just read? Right. Because I was like distracted with other things and all this other stuff that's going on.
Got a spark note the book you just read.
Right. But it's glad I'm glad to see that, and obviously veterans being on the show is something that's like super true to my heart, because obviously, but I always look at, I named it that because business is war. It's just a different kind of war. We're not getting shot at. We're just, maybe you throw your pen across the room at a coworker or something, but
it really is. No, most of the stuff correlates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a good friend of mine was thinking about starting a business, and he goes, man, I'm so far away from where you are. And I said, you're really not.
Yeah. No.
You led people in the Army, and he led people in the Army for 27 years. Right. And I said, there's no difference in leading business people than there is leading, troops. It's the same thing. It's just, you got a different set of clothes on.
You don't need to have all the answers, especially when you're coaching people or whatever, or teaching people. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to be a chapter or two ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like the bare minimum, and yet that's enough. I think it's great that we live in a time where we can, like, sometimes all somebody needs to get to the next level is that next chapter, and if you have that, that's everything to that person. Yeah. So I think it's great that you're stepping in and looking at the number of people that are asking you to run a workshop, and you're like, all right, absolutely fine, I'll do that.
And it's one of those things, and I saw this in the military too, where it's like, it's not a bad thing if the people that you're teaching surpass you. That's a good feeling when that happens.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
No, man. So I actually, I'm a little curious about this. Has it been difficult to grow your channel, or was it because there's a lot of business owners that want to have their own channel, but they only see it as a marketing, a part of their marketing plan. But I know for you, it's closer than that. Sure, it might serve that same purpose, but you also love teaching. Hey, have you had any challenges that you didn't expect growing a channel?
I barely look at we don't have a lot of subscribers on the channel. It's like 750 people, but it's 750 people that are engaged in the community. I don't really look at the subscriber count because I'm in a very niche community of like short-term rental real estate development. Real estate development's already niche. And no, it's one of those things where you're already going. I tell people all the time, and it doesn't need to be YouTube. It's just YouTube to me is the easiest because you can repurpose all that content into all the other platforms. Same thing with podcasts. We're doing a video podcast right now that can be repurposed into TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube on top of the podcast. So I just like the video form more. But I always tell people, like, if you have a business or whatever you're working on, or if something that you're working on is eventually going to be your full-time gig, just have a camera with you and just speak your mind into the camera. You're already having these thoughts anyways. So, I mean, the growth of the channel obviously is important, but I haven't really like focused too much on that. It's just happened organically for the most part. It's like the more I've gotten on podcasts, the more I've taught on Bigger Pockets, the more I've gotten my name out there through other stuff. Instagram is very easy to use in my opinion, because it's just taking a picture and just reposting it. The more my YouTube channel has grown because of that.
I see. It all funnels back.
Yeah, and I haven't monetized my YouTube channel yet. Eventually I will, but it's like I feel like I'm doing pretty good right now. Where it's I don't need this thing. Yeah.
No, man, I can appreciate the stance that you're taking as you focus on growing other aspects of your operation and what that looks like. And everything that you're bringing to script here and together with Jason about the mentality of like how to prepare, what plan you should have if you are a part of that demographic that is a veteran considering going into business and all those things. For me, these conversations are super important. I have a cousin right now. He's in the Army, and I think he's in Germany the last time I checked. And I just know, like, he was a graphic designer before he went into the Army, like, and there's no telling what he's going to be afterwards. But I just know that I've seen a lot happen. I've been at dinners where I was hanging out with veterans, and later in the night, suddenly it wasn't so dinner happy because something triggered a memory or what have you. And, I've seen what it can do. And yet they wake up the next day and go right back to work and try to start all over again. And for me, I'm just like, man, there are people out there with far fewer problems, who have far fewer obstacles and still can't get it together. So it's really admirable to be able to hear, how much veterans support each other. I want to encourage veterans to step into business because those are the qualities.
This isn't the short-term rentals in general. Wasn't the first thing I landed on when I encourage guys to keep themselves, girls, guys, whatever, to keep themselves busy when they get out, because you'll go from a 60 to 80 hour week. I'm sure you can you can attest to this. Like, you'll go from a 60 to 80 hour work week tempo to almost nothing if you get out with nothing lined up. Because like when I first started I went immediately into business when I got out because I was still going to school full time, but between starting my business and going to school, it wasn't 60, 80 hours. Sometimes that stress of not doing anything could suck too. Of like, okay, you're used to a certain structure in your life, and then that just gets taken away from you. Or I say taken away, like you just stop that, but that's gone. That can stress you out as well. I've seen a lot of my friends go through that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's powerful stuff, man. So if you had bottom line, hey, you want to get into business, you want to start a channel, in general, you're young and are trying to get ahead in life, what is your bottom line go-to philosophy?
Yeah, so it actually comes off a book that like just how to structure your day and your life, essentially, because I'm all about structure, right? The one thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan is phenomenal. Yeah. It's a short book. There's a lot of pictures in it too, which I like. But it's a
Marine, gotta have pictures.
Yeah, gotta love pictures. But yeah, it's just a good book for like teaching structure and stuff. like setting aside, you don't know what you're gonna, you might not know what you're gonna land on at like 100%, but setting aside like 2 to 3 hours a day, especially if you have that time, like 3 hours a day to just focus on one thing, like whether it be real estate, like I would start with just a general asset class to start, whether it be stocks, real estate, whatever you want to get into, or general business, and then just really focus on it until you're like, okay, I'm not really enjoying this. And there's a difference between enjoying something and having something work out, because like you're just like stuck. You might enjoy it, but you're just stuck. So that's I would recommend that book to start. Is just figure out something that you want to work on. Maybe you saw something on the internet, or maybe you just heard something like some sort of business, and work on that until either you figure out, hey, maybe I actually don't enjoy doing this, or it's just like it takes you on to the next thing. That's what I'd recommend to people. It's just try out stuff. You might not know what you're going to land on initially. I never would have thought I was going to get into real estate development.
Nah, man, that's big. A solid book recommendation goes a long way for a lot of people. Books happened to save my life when I was young, and it gave me the guidance that I needed that I couldn't get from family. So you're gonna,
guys who are getting out, or anyone who's looking to get into business and transition, you're gonna struggle with that structure. I can tell you that flat out. So it's like putting something in place if you're actually looking to get into business for yourself. Now, if you're working for a company, that's different. They're going to give you that structure, at least most of it. But you need to put, like, I sit down every night, every Sunday, I figure out my whole schedule, and then every night I adjust my schedule. So it's like, or at the end of the day, not at night, but like you are responsible for your own schedule now, which can suck. Like, just be ready for that. Like, not suck, but it's your responsibility now.
Right. It's an adaptation. Yeah, no, man, that's big. Thank you. With that said, I want to take a quick break to give a shout out to one of our supporters before we move on to some of the closing segments of the conversation. So big shout out to Blue University, BLU University, with Ryan Jackson. For anybody who wants to learn about entrepreneurship, and I think this is very on point with this conversation, but you hate the idea of spending years on earning a degree and large debt just to,
we've already done it.
Working for somebody else, or you spent years developing skills and you're still in that 9 to 5. You're like, what's going on? Blue University is literally by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. It's the thing you've been waiting to hear, especially if this conversation has been resonating with you. And their instructors have actually accomplished things in the real world, unlike what we heard about with the MBA programs here. And they're teaming up with us, the podcast, to give you that opportunity. If you just go to blue.university, that's BLU.university, you can put in a code SAB20 and get 20% off, just because you were listening to this conversation today with Alex and the War Room. So with that said, now I want to roll out the red carpet.
Before you do that, so I talked to the owner of Blue University, and he authorized me to give out 100 scholarships. So,
whoa, for real?
Yep. So if you are interested in Blue University, please reach out and let them know the War Room sent you for your scholarship.
Whoa, I did not know that. Okay. Yep. That's news right there, Jason. All right.
Something new as of
those listeners have to thank Alex, because
what is it? We've been on here for 28 minutes ago, so that was 32 minutes ago.
Oh,
awesome. Oh,
wow. 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes before we hopped on. Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Yeah, man. So Alex, I want to roll out the red carpet for you too. And like, where should people go to connect with you and like take a look at your materials? Is it your YouTube channel you want them to go to, website?
Yeah. So actually my personal channel, or my personal website, that's where everything lives. My past interviews, my YouTube channel, my course. If people are interested in that, that's just alexjarbo.com. If you guys are interested in just contacting me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And then also, if you guys want to check out Bigger Pockets, I'm pretty active in the comment section there too.
Yeah, man. And that's Jarbo, Jarbo.
Yep, alexjarbo.com. Yep.
Yeah, cool. For those who are listening and aren't looking at the video, I always got to go that extra mile with the spelling, because they're probably doing something illegal, like texting on their phone anyways. But with that said, man, we've reached the point of the grand finale, and that is, if you could have invited anybody to this conversation here today, Alex, who would you have loved to have had in the room with us today, and why them?
Yeah, man. So it's actually, I mean, a person that I connect with almost every single week at this point. He's a newer mentor in my life. He's not a mentor meaning like I pay him. It's just someone that has sort of his company was a part of my life for a while, and it sort of helped me get to the point where I'm at now. And right now I coach for his community just like 1 hour a week. But I've learned so much by just shadowing him in person, but also seeing how he works just like through what we work with. So Brian Page has been a huge influence on me. So Brian Page owns B&B Formula. B&B Formula is sort of like a rental arbitrage subleasing type of like mentorship, but they do everything at this point, whether it be purchasing, renovating, development. The course teaches everything. I think he has like 15,000 people in this community at this point. He's been at it for like 5-6 years. But I would love to, but he just published a book, and I'm plugging his book right now just because of that. But his book is Don't Start a Side Hustle, which is such a phenomenal title. Don't Start a Side Hustle. It just talks about different income vehicles for people. Like in terms of, and then how to like literally like what we already talked about, focusing all your energy on one passive income vehicle. He calls them PIVs, one passive income vehicle, to figure out if that's something you actually want to get into. But yeah, Brian Page would have been a phenomenal person to have next to us during this conversation.
Hey man, maybe we'll get him on through a referral by you. Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Bring him back, and we'll do a
a real one for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That sounds interesting, man. No, great. Thank you for that, man. And way to pull in somebody close to you. I think I myself am a product of the people who are far ahead of me, who continue to pull me closer to that finish line, man. So I can tell that
you have the choice. I compare a lot of things to the military. Sometimes you don't really have a decision on who your leaders are. In the real world, in the civilian world, like you have a choice on who your mentors can be for the most part. So like figure out those best things that comes from the military, and then just apply them to the civilian world.
You can decide which seat on the bus you want to take.
There you go. That's huge. You're just sitting down. You're like, someone about to yell at me?
You're in the military. You don't get to choose which side of the cattle car you stand on.
Oh man. Well,
I'm guilty of it too, so I can't talk that much crap.
Well, it's tradition around here for Jason to close us out, so I'm gonna let him do that. But man, it's been cool talking to you, Alex.
No, I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, great having you on the show. It was fun. You shared a lot of good knowledge and things that I think people are going to get some good knowledge from. So I appreciate that. That's the whole point of the show. Thank you for your service. I thank you for continuing to be an influential part of the veteran community. And bring your mentor on the show.
Yeah, we'll
do a riff session.
Love it.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the War Room Roundtable with your hosts, Jason Miller and Phillip Lanos. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and always remember, if you can dream it and believe it, then you can go achieve it. We'll see you in the next episode.